היי, פרק 10, The Wave, פתיח, התחלנו. Chapter 10. Ben Ross was having coffee in the faculty lounge when someone came in and told him Principal Owens wanted to see him in his office. Robert felt a tremor of nervousness. Had something gone wrong? If Owens wanted to see him, it had to be about the wave. Ross stepped out into the hall and started down towards the principal's office. On the way, more than a dozen students paused to give him the wave salute. He returned them and continued quickly, wondering what Owens was going to say. In one sense, if Owens was going to tell him that there had been complaints and that he should stop the experiment, Ross knew he would feel some relief. Honestly, he had never expected the wave to spread this far. The news that kids in other classes, kids in other grades even, had joined the wave still amazed him. He simply hadn't intended it to be anything like this. And yet, there was another consideration. The so-called losers in the class, Robert Billings, for example. For the first time in his life, Robert was an equal, a member, a part of a group. No one was making fun of him anymore, no one was giving him a hard time, and the change in Robert was indeed remarkable. Not only had his appearance improved, but he was starting to contribute. For the first time, he was an active member of his class, and it wasn't just history. Christy said she noticed something in his music, too. Robert seemed like a new person. To end the wave might mean returning Robert to the role of class creep and taking away the only chance he had. Why wouldn't ending the experiment now also cheat the other students who were taking part in it? Ben wondered. They would be left hanging without a chance to see where it would eventually lead them, and he would lose the chance to lead them there. בן מוזמן לשיחה אצל המנהל. מנהל אורנס, וכמו כל אדם שמוזמן למנהל, בין אם צעיר, מבוגר, תלמיד, מורה, זה מלחיץ. כי אתה חושב שאולי הולכים להתלונן משהו לא בסדר. וזה מה שבן מפחד שעומד לקרות, שאולי יתלוננו, ואז הוא אומר לעצמו, רגע, אולי אם המנהל אורנס הכריח אותי לסיים את The Wave, זה איזשהו ריליף באיזשהו מקום, זה אולי תחושת הקלה כזו, כי הוא לא ציפה ש-The Wave הגיע לממדים כאלה גדולים, והוא קצת כזה מפחד ולא יודע מה לעשות עם זה, אז זה יכול ככה לעזור לו לסגור את זה יפה, כאילו הוא היה חייב, וזה כאילו, קיצר, זה מציל אותו באיזשהו מקום. מצד שני הוא חושב על רוברט בילינגס, ואיזה שינוי זה עשה בו, ולא רק בשיעורי היסטוריה, גם בשיעור מוזיקה, אשתו מדווחת, קריסטי, וכאילו מתבאס בשבילו ובשביל הלוזרים האחרים, וגם באיזשהו מקום הוא מרגיש לא נעים מהתלמידים, הוא עשה להם את הניסוי הזה שהם לא יודעים שהם משתתפים בו, והוא הולך לשדוד מהם את התוצאות אם הם הולכים להפסיק עכשיו, אז מה עשינו מזה? Ben abruptly stopped. Hey, wait a minute. Since when was he leading them anyway? This was a classroom experiment, remember? An opportunity for his students to get a taste of what life in Nazi Germany might have been like. Ross smiled to himself. Let's not get carried away, he thought, and continued down the hall. רגע, בן חושב לעצמו. אני בכלל מוביל אותם בדבר הזה? זה בכלל שלי? אני עשיתי ניסוי בכיתה שלי. זה שהם ניפחו את זה ועשו מזה מה שזה עכשיו, זה לא באשמתי. בוא לא נסחף. אני רק רציתי ללמד אותם איך זה הרגיש לחיות בגרמניה הנאצית. Principal Owens' door was open, and when he saw Ben Ross enter the anteroom, he motioned him in with a wave. Ben was slightly confused. On the way down to the office, he'd somehow convinced himself that Principal Owens was going to chew him out, but the old man appeared to be in a good mood. Principal Owens was a towering man who stood over 6 feet 4 inches. His head was almost completely bald, except for a few tufts of hair around either ear. His only other noteworthy feature was his pipe, always present, which protruded from his lips. He had a deep voice, and when he was angry, he might instill instant religion in the most hardened atheist. But today it seemed as if Ben had nothing to fear. Principal Owens sat behind his desk. His large black shoes popped up from one corner and squinted lightly at Ben. Say, Ben, that's a good-looking suit, he said. Owen himself had never been seen around Gordon High in less than a 3-piece, even at a Saturday football game. Thank you, sir, Ben replied nervously. Principal Owen smiled. I can't recall seeing you in one before. Ah, yes, this is something new for me, Ben allowed. One of the principal's eyebrows rose. wouldn't have anything to do with this wave thing, would it? Ben had to clear his throat. Well, yes, it does, actually. Principal Owens leaned forward. Now tell me, Ben, what this wave thing is all about, he said. You've got the school in a tizzy. Well, I hope it's a good tizzy, Ben Ross replied. Principal Owens rubbed his chin. From what I've heard, it is. Have you heard differently? Ben knew he had to reassure him. He quickly shook his head. No, sir, I've heard nothing. The principal nodded. I'm all ears, Ben. Ben took a deep breath and began. It started several days ago in my senior history class. We were watching a film about the Nazis, and when he finished explaining the wave, Ben noticed the Principal Owens looked less happy than before, but not as noticeably displeased as Ben had feared he might be. The principal removed his pipe from between his lips and tapped it on an ashtray. I must say it's unusual, Ben. Are you sure that the students are not falling behind? If anything, they're ahead, Ben replied. But there are students outside your class that are now involved with this, the principal observed. But there have been no complaints, Ben said. In fact, Christy says she's even noticed an improvement in her classes because of it. It was a slight exaggeration, Ben knew, but he also felt it was necessary because Owens was overreacting to the wave. Still, Ben, these mottos and the saluting bother me, the principal said. It shouldn't, Ben replied. It's just part of the game. And also, Norm Schiller? Yes, I know, Owen said, cutting him short. He was in here yesterday raving about this thing. He said it's literally turned that football team of his around. The way he was talking, Ben. You would have thought he just drafted 6 future Heisman Trophy winners. Frankly, I just like to see them beat Clarkstown on Saturday. The principal paused momentarily and then said, But that's not what I'm concerned about, Ben. I'm concerned about the students. This wave thing seemed too open-ended for my liking. I know you haven't broken any rules, but there are limits. I'm completely aware of that, Ben insisted. You have to understand that this experiment can't go any further than I let it go. The whole basis for the wave is the idea of a group willing to follow their leader. And as long as I'm involved in this, I assure you, it can't get out of hand. Principal Owens refilled his pipe with fresh tobacco and lit it, for a moment disappearing behind a small cloud of smoke, while he considered Ben's words. Okay, he said. To be perfectly frank about this, it's so different from anything we've ever had around here that I'm not sure what to think. I say, let's keep an eye on this thing, Ben, and keep your ears open too. Remember, Ben, this experiment, if that's what you want to call it, involves young, impressionable kids. Sometimes we forget that they are young and haven't developed the judgment we hope they'll someday have. Sometimes they can take something too far if they're not watched. Understand? Absolutely. You promise me I'm not going to have a parade of parents down here suddenly shouting that we're indoctrinating their kids with something. I promise, Ben said. Principal Owens nodded slightly. Well, I can't say that I'm crazy about this, but you've never given me cause to doubt you before. And I won't now, Ben told him. פרק 10, פרק קצר, הרווחנו. כל השיחה הזו בין המנהל אורנס לבן רוס מעלה שאלות. בעצם המנהל מאוד סבבה לו שזה עוזר לנבחרת אולי לנצח בשבת, אבל מצד שני הוא קצת מפחד מהתגובה של ההורים. הוא מזהיר את בן רוס שמדובר בילדים שהם impressionable, כלומר מאוד קל להשפיע על ילדים בגיל הזה. מצטער את זה אתם קלים להשפעה, אתם רואים דמות סמכותית חזקה וקל לכם ללכת אחריה, לא כי אתם לא בסדר אלא כי זה מין גיל כזה. הפיתוח של החשיבה הביקורתית הוא עוד לא על 100, וזה בסדר גמור, זה יהיה בהמשך, אם נעשה עבודה טובה ונחנך אתכם כמו שצריך, אנחנו וההורים שלכם. המנהל מודאג מה-open-endedness של זה, הוא מודאג מזה שאין סוף כל כך מוגדר לניסוי הזה, אבל בגדול, בגלל שבן רוס מעולם לא נתן לו סיבה לא לסמוך עליו, הוא סומך עליו גם הפעם, הוא אומר לו תפקח עין, תראה שאתה מנהל את זה, תראה שאתה על זה, שזה לא יוצא משליטה, ולא, יחל החייל בהצלחה, ובזה מסתיים פרק 10. לפני שאני ממשיכה לצלם ממש את הפרק הבא ממש עכשיו, אני מזכירה לכם לעשות סאבסקרייב. אין שום סיבה שלא יהיו פה 250,000 מנויים. אני רוצה את כל תלמידי ישראל
פה אצלי ביוטיוב לומדים אצלי אנגלית, משפרים את האנגלית שלהם, משפרים את הציונים שלהם, משפרים את הבגרות שלהם, בשביל זה אני פה, בשביל זה אני עושה את מה שאני עושה, רק אתם יכולים לעזור לי עם זה, ויאללה, נתראה בפרק הבא. ביי!